Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins in August 2005. An unusual murder occurs on the streets of Onsan, South Korea. A white automobile collides with the back of a black car. Both drivers are strangers. The black car driver motions the white car driver out of his vehicle, and takes images of the accident with his phone. But he didn't expect the white automobile driver to pull out a knife and stab him, who vanishes into the night, his corpse uncovered on the roadway. The next day, authorities block up the area, and Detective Young Tae-suk discovers a few splatters of white paint left by the car's rear end. The murderer's fingerprints, blood or hair are not discovered. Young Tae-suk realizes that this case is out of the ordinary. In terms of detectives, he stands out in his department. While the sheriff and his deputies surreptitiously accept bribes from the gangsters, he refuses to participate in any of their schemes. He's always had his own thoughts. He frequently visits the gangsters' casino, in search of mischief. Jang Dong-seok, the most powerful gangster in South Gyeonggi-do, is a thorn in his side. Anyone who tries to mess with him becomes a sandbag under his fist, thanks to his extremely well-built body and furious visage. He owns hundreds of casinos and nightclubs, and his gang manufactures the majority of the slot machines in the country. Later in the afternoon, Jang Dong-seok holds a meeting with Hyo Song-do, another mobster. The two men are old friends who used to draw a line between themselves, so they wouldn't cross it. Hyo Song-do, on the other hand, has recently developed an interest in the casino industry. He desires to redivide the region, in order to obtain a piece of the pie. Jang Dong-seok's guy, Kwon Oh-sung, is displeased before he could say anything. When Hyo Song-do notices Kwon arguing with his men, he throws soup on Kwon Oh-sung's face, and mocks Jang Dong-seok's men for being rude and disrespectful. Kwon is punched by Jang Dong-seok. Hyo Song-do's man also shows his face. Jang Dong-seok reaches out and rips out his teeth. Hyo Song-do does not dare to make another request. Young Tae-suk and the sheriff are arguing about the case, at the police station. The sheriff assumes it was a routine robbery. However, Young Tae-suk objects and examines the images of the 2 July homicides. The length and width of the stab wounds on 3 victims are the same, implying they were caused by the same knife. This appears to be a serial murder case. The director's face darkens as he hears this statement. He doesn't want to hear his gibberish and tells him not to get involved in the issue. In his rage, he turns around and walks away. He decides to conduct a covert investigation into these incidents. It's late and raining outside. Dong-seok is driving home by himself. But then he is struck by a white automobile. Dong-seok comes out and notices that his automobile is in good condition, but the white car driver is hiding his face. Dong-seok dismisses it as nonsense. But just as he is going to get back into the car, the man pulls out a knife and strikes him from behind. Dong-seok knocks the man down after being stabbed twice. The man stands up, ready to stab him again. Dong-seok snatches the knife from him, and wrestles him onto the car. He then flings him on the hood, seizes the knife, and attempts to stab back, but he misses. He takes up the knife and pushes it again, this time in the killer's chest. The man dashes to his car and punches Dong-seok in the face. Dong-seok is quickly taken to the hospital. When Dong-seok's man Kwon sees his boss in danger, he assumes Hyo Song-do had something to do with it. Without saying anything, he and his troops arrive in Sang-dos and begin destroying the place. When Song-do's men see the situation deteriorating, they leap out the window. Dong-seok wakes up 2 days later. Tae-suk, the detective, enters the ward. He asks Dong-seok to describe the killer's appearance. But Dong-seok refuses to cooperate. He claims to have fallen and chases Tae-suk away, who discovers white paint on Dong-seok's vehicle. He is overjoyed when he discovers that the man who had attacked him was the serial killer. Hyo Song-do comes to meet Jang Dong-seok after Tae-suk. He states that he was not the one who harmed Dong-seok, and instead blames Dong-seok's man. Kwon leads his group, destroying his property and wounding his men. He demands 10 more casinos, but Dong-seok only promises him dozens of dollars in compensation. Dong-seok is laughed at by Sang-do. Nobody is cutting down a thug who has always been the one to stab others. Jang Dong-seok is severely hurt by these statements. Dong-seok then contacts a painter, sketching a portrait of the man driving the white automobile. Meanwhile, the murderer commits another offense. The truck driver is killed. He finally shows his face this time. This man has a broad brow, a short face, a big mouth, and a pointed nose. Kang Kyung-ho is his name. He drives the truck down the national highway after the murder. But then, from the back, a sleeping late shifter wakes up. In the automobile, the two men struggle, and Kang kills the man. However, his knife gets thrown from the truck. Tae-suk returns to Dong-soo a few days later. Dong-soo learns the man who had wronged him was a serial killer. Tae-suk wants him to help, but Dong-soo believes that doing it the Dong-so way is more effective than following the law. Kwon discovers the killer's abandoned car and the knife from that night. Dong-soo phones Tae-suk after much thought, and speaks up bluntly when they meet. He has the killer's car and is willing to pay to have the murderer apprehended. Tae-suk will be in charge of tracking down the killer and passing on whatever information he gathers to Dong-soo. And whoever captures the murderer first, will have to deal with him personally. Tae-suk agrees. Dong-soo pulls out a photograph and a recorder. He advises Tae-suk not to play tricks on him, because he has taped their chat. Tae-suk stomps his feet in rage at being mocked, but he has no choice but to admit it. He goes to Dong-soo's factory at night, where the automobile is kept. The researchers begin scanning for fingerprints, hair and other clues. Meanwhile, Dong-soo hands his guy Kwon another order, to assassinate his competitor Hyo Song-do. Kwon creeps into Song-do's chamber, and murders him with the killer's knife. He also leaves the knife behind. Tae-suk charges at Dong-soo after noticing Song-do killed in such an unusual manner. Dong-soo then knocks him to the ground with one hand. Tae-suk questions Dong-soo about the death of Hyo Song-do, who acknowledges openly. Tae-suk turns around and leaves, obtaining what he desired. Investigators soon discover the blood of the various victims on the knife. These crimes were committed by the same individual. The public's attention is instantly drawn to the situation by the media. The police are heavily chastised for their failure, and the major crime unit takes up the investigation from the local officers. Kang, the serial killer, is watching the news in a little diner. He mumbles that he did not murder Hyo Song-do. The next day, during Hyo Song-do's funeral, Dong-soo arrives with his men, as does the killer, Kang. He is spying on him from the crowd. Then he approaches Hyo Song-do's men and hands them a message. It is written in large letters, "Someone killed Hyo Song-do with my knife." With a furious look in his eyes, the Song-do underboss immediately understands. Dong-soo and Tae-suk are searching for clues in the automobile late at night. They eventually discover a fingerprint. But just then, Song-do's soldiers break in, seeking to avenge the death. Tae-suk becomes entangled in the melee. Dong-soo is unconcerned. When they have finished beating them up and the reinforcements, Dong-soo discovers that Tae-suk had killed the Song-do gang's underboss. Tae-suk becomes terrified. Dong-soo instructs him to get out, and plans to bury the body. On the other side of town, Kang assassinates another driver, and places the body in the trunk. According to the report on the radio, the police announce they will arrest him soon. He laughs and decides to give the cops something new. Police receive a kidnapping report. The person who contacted the police was the victim's wife. Kang pretends to be the kidnapper and relocates the transaction. He performs a prank on Tae-suk. A restaurant is chosen as the location for the ransom payment. Tae-suk instantly leads his team to the eatery after noticing a suspicious individual, Kang, who feels he has been exposed, and escapes quickly. Tae-suk chases him right away. However, the situation is difficult, and he eventually loses him. Tae-suk is summoned back to the police station. The fingerprints he discovered on the white car were linked to a man's profile, according to the investigator. This guy died 3 months ago. The landlady then dialed 911. In this individual's rented room, a photograph of the man is discovered. Tae-suk grabs the portrait right away. Kang is identified as the individual in the photograph after a comparison. Tae-suk calls Jang Dong-soo right away and sends Kang's image. Kang was assaulted by his father as a child, according to the report. This was quite likely what produced Kang's psychological misperception. Nonetheless, he continues to phone his 70-year-old mother every night. They determine the location by tracing the phone signal, but the area is highly inhabited. The quest is too difficult. Dong-soo, on the other hand, collected his men to search, each with a photograph of Kang. They looked at every possible location. However, a week passes, and Kang has yet to be found, and no further murders have occurred. It is lightly raining, and Dong-soo notices a student without an umbrella. He gives his umbrella. The young lady thanks him and boards a bus. However, he fails to notice the serial killer is also on the bus. At night, Tae-suk and Dong-soo are having dinner. A murder case is being reported on TV. The girl who received the umbrella was the victim. Dong-soo is enraged. He dispatches all of his guys. They search a 5-kilometer radius around the crime location. Kwon eventually finds Kang's motel, after a few hours of searching. The room, however, is vacant. Kang is very likely to commit another crime, and will most likely return. Dong-soo and Tae wait for him in the car until late night. They notice a suspicious vehicle, It is recognized by Tae-suk and his men. However, Kang learns that he has been exposed, and accelerates unexpectedly. He drives to a tight alley, and Dong-seok drives around it and slams the gas, creating a 3-vehicle collision and bringing the automobile to a halt. Kang had already escaped into the alley by the time they get out of the car. They split apart in order to find him. Kang attacks Kwon in one of the corners. Dong-seok returns his attention to Kwon's whereabouts, who dies after pointing out the direction. Dong-seok follows the blood trail into a karaoke private room. Kang had taken refuge in the restroom. Dong-seok acts like a raging bull, and slams the door shut, and pins Kang. He punches through the door into Kang's face, knocking him out. Dong-seok returns him to the factory. Kang, on the other hand, does not plead for pity. Instead, he burst out laughing. Dong-seok raises his machete and prepares to sever his head. Tae-suk breaks into the house with a car and knocks Dong-seok out. He apologizes to Dong-seok, and returns Kang to the police station. The entire squad is in awe of him. Tae-suk is still having trouble with his investigation 2 days later. Because Kang already damaged his fingerprints with acid, he has no direct evidence of Kang's murders. In the courtroom, because there is no concrete evidence, he appears to be innocent. But just then, Dong-seok pulls the door open and enters. He removes his shirt, and points out the 3 stab wounds caused by Kang. He also indicates where he had stabbed Kang. Finally, he pulls out the message that Kang had written. The only thing written on the message is, "My knife killed Hyo Song-do." It is possible to verify that Kang wrote the notes by comparing them. Due to the overwhelming evidence, the judge sentences Kang to death. Dong-seok is arrested half a month later for his illegal activities. All of the gang members in the prison bow down to greet their boss. Kang, who is reading a book, gasps and looks up, while Dong-seok gives him an evil smile. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.